today about Devereux Emmet, and when I thought of coming to Philadelphia, set something up. And my hobbies and interests, and now I'm doing a little bit of golf consulting. It's I'm into architecture. I have a lot of friends that call me from Europe and say, well, when I'm in America, what courses do I need to see, and then what buildings I'm going to see. So in terms of Philadelphia, there's a lot of people that come here and they say, should I go out to Elkins Park? There's a synagogue by Frank Lloyd Wright. And I say, no. I say, I mean, you can, but there's two buildings in Philadelphia that kind of cover Emmet's time. And one was done by Frank Furness in around 1870. Emmet was born in 1860. The other is a building downtown. Whoops. The PSS building. That's an extremely important building in the history of modern architecture. It was built around 1929, and Howe and Lescaze built it. They were actually known for building a lot of houses in this general area. So you have 1870 and 1930. Emmet lived from 1861 to 1930. Now there's a small connection with Emmet, or Emmet reminds me of Furness. Furness was a local architect. He was born in Philadelphia. Much of his work was completed, say, within a 75-mile radius of here. In his life, he did about 900 buildings. Most of them are demolished. They're not here. Okay, so let's switch to Emmet. Emmet did maybe 190 courses or so. Some of the greatest courses are under the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway and the Meadowbrook Parkway. So to really appreciate Emmet, we have to look, do aerial research and understand how great some of his lost courses. I'm going to start today actually with a course that still exists, and it originally was set on 800 acres upstate New York near Saratoga. It's called McGregor. The McGregor course is absolutely one of his best designs, living or dead. The land was very sand-based, and he was very enthusiastic about it. It's remarkable in terms of the routing over the land. That you'll see on the picture there's some condos, but those have been there for 20 years. But he was thrilled. So when he actually built it originally, it was all virgin forest, and he somehow figured out how to route these holes. What I want to call your attention to is down at the bottom. Whoops, orientation, I'm sorry. Over here. This is the third hole. It's about 250 yards. There's a depression in the land. There's a ravine here, and then there's a rise here. I don't know if these remind anybody of National, but one of the key elements of Emmet is diagonal. And he could have a dead flat piece of land, but he would use diagonal bunkers so that someone that shoots 120 could make a choice over here, and then the scratch player could go to him. This particular hole, Emmet wrote the model after the Sahara hole in St. George's in England. Now we're going to go to the next hole. 320 yards coming south. And this has wonderful topography. The topography is a little like Plainfield in New Jersey. The green is rather small and it's perched up. And so you have these holes 250 and 310. The problem is when you go, if you happen to go, you're going to, no matter where you put it here, your lie is going to be not level. If you go over the green, you're dead. When Emmet described the hole, he called it a dangerous declivity in the back of the green. So I'm not going to labor too long on, but this is the great stretch. So you have 250. During his day, it was 240, par 3. You have a short par 4. You have a great par 3. And then you had a hole in his day, 560, that travels over all this topography. So this is another key thing of Emmet, having holes in his day from maybe 110 yards to 580 yards. So by today's standards, that's maybe 700 yards. And he varied his holes a lot in terms of yardage. So this is just a close-up of the holes I just talked about. And there's number 2, which has a magnificent green. 3, lots of topography down the hill, and then lots of topography there. Okay, so we're going to move on now to the great town of Loudonville. I don't know if anybody went to Siena, but Siena College. This is a really nicely preserved course of it's called Schuyler Meadow, about 10 miles from Albany. I like this particular hole. This is the 16th hole at Schuyler Meadow. What you're seeing is the landing area and the green, and what you don't see, you can see a bridge, but there's a little stream, natural stream that just flows softly there. This is a nice hole because it combines his 3 elements. He loved blindness. He didn't want to tear down, cut the fairway, cut the land. So if he had a semi-blind shot, he was fine with that. So for the shorter golfer, you're going to be blind on your second. And also, there's one thing about his bunkering. They never looked the same. They usually did not look the same. So one here, you have kind of a strip, and then here it's a little simpler. Lots of variety in that. So if you make it over the hill, you come down, and there's this stream that you have to carry, but it's beautifully integrated into the land. One more, they got these bunkers at Schuyler Meadow. This is the 8th hole. It's about 380. These bunkers here, this cluster, they're maybe 60 yards short of the green. The hole is a medium par 4, so you have to sort of neatly place your ball over here if you want a good look. And there's a little bit of a depth perception. If you play back further, or if you don't get it off the tee, there's a little bit of a problem with depth perception. It's a little hard to pick up, but this green he linked with another green on the front. So you can kind of see this large berm, which is also common in this work, some at Weatherstocking and some at Weber. Okay, now we're going to go south to Weber. Weber is one of his better known courses. What I'm going to illustrate today is how changes were made that interrupted his sequencing. What I mean by that, Dev did a lot of unusual things. One unusual thing he did was he would finish courses very often with a hole of about 300 yards, and like a hole of like 120 yards, and then a ball buster of 340 yards. Short par 3, short par 4. This happened at least a dozen times. And he often closed his courses with par 3s. Also within routing sequences, much like Langford, he would have 5, 4, 3, 4, 5, 3, lots of shifts, kind of like at some of you have played at Lasonia. I don't, unfortunately, have the original aerial, but when I went to Weber, and when I wrote a little essay on Emmet, I said that Weber was a wonderful course, but it seemed a little clean, a little refined for me. I went into the men's locker room later that day, and there was this big-ass aerial, this black and white aerial, and what it revealed is that they had chopped up what was the 8th hole, a par 5, bisected with a brook, and the 9th hole was a tough uphill par 3. So they turned that into 2 very boring par 4s. So let me show you what it would have been. Originally, sorry, just a second. Just flip down to that. Okay. So the sequence goes, there's a sequence that goes 5, 3, 4, 4. And then the 10th is another 5. So that used to go 5, 3, 5, 3, 5. And also with a brook that's been piped underground. So I'm going to try to show you. Okay, so here's 6, here's 7, here's 8. So 8 used to be a par 5 that came up to here. And then there was the brook. 9 was the par 3 here, with one of the most interesting greens on the course, a huge dome in the middle of it. And then 10 went back downhill. So you had all this variety in the brook and everything. But now, the worst part of the course is that sequence where you just go into very, very boring 2-par fours. Now this is, this man on the right is my business advisor, and the woman on the left is my office manager. So, and from what I know, even though he has a good bank account, he never quite had as much money as Emmet. Okay. So now we're going to travel to Long Island, and before I gosh guys, there's some guys chattering. I'm sorry. I just like if you could just hang on a minute because I'm having a hard time making it through as it is. Okay, so I'm gonna talk a little bit about some of Emmet's how he treated a course called Glenhead. Glenhead is very significant. It was a course developed as Women's National. Women's National was imagined mostly by Marion Hollins, who did Pasatiempo and a lot of other things. Very accomplished golfer, very accomplished foreign person, very accomplished tennis player. So she traveled over to Britain and met up with a lady golfer named Cecil Leach as well over there, and then over here she was good friends with Alexis Sterling. Again, these are really, Tom would probably know a lot about these things.
Great friend of Paige Harris.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Yeah. So I'm going to just read Marion talking about the idea of multiple options. In other words, not just a straight line. Okay, so she said, sorry. Okay. It turned out that Miss Sterling drives over a series of tests averaged about 175 yards carry, and so this has been struck as the average carries on the direct line to the green are of that length. Mr. Emmet has just taken that yardage as like a dropping point where a ball would drop if the tee shot was hit with by an expert. Of course, in many cases, generous leeway has been made for the slighter or shorter hitters for shots that were just a little off. Also, on every hole here, this is in Glenhead, Nassau County, New York, there are one or more alternate lines of play beside that of the direct line to the green. This permits the short or cannier player attempt a safer line of direction, although it usually costs them close to a stroke. Okay, so the picture I have up now has nothing to do with Glenhead. It has to do with St. George's, certainly one of Emmet's greatest works. What you see here is, again, it reminds me a lot of the National Golf Leagues, which Emmet was a very important part of the trilogy that designed that, along with McDonald and Seth Raymond. Emmet, one of the things that struck me as I played St. George's is the segment here. One is a very nice opener, but it doesn't feel at all golden age. I mean, it is, but then he goes into this area here where this section here is the second hole, a longish par 5. Parallel to that, coming in the other direction down here, is the 18th. So there's a lot of shared bunkers here. Again, creating, like what Hollins was saying, lots of strategic choices. Some of them are shallow, some of them are deep. Some of them are hairy, some of them are bald. So anyway, the movement in the ground is nice here, but it's not nearly as dramatic as McGregor, Schuyler Meadow, or Reburn. But he set off a lot of things with these clusters of bunkers. And this side, which in reality is that's the road, this section south of the road near the campus of Stony Brook is definitely one of his greatest segments of work. Some of his best par 4s, the 13th hole at St. George's, which used to be 13th hole now, that used to be, I think Joe did the 18th originally, I believe. Yeah. So I got confused when I went out there because I had my theory, and I had seen so many times where he ends with that short combination of like 120, 340. But at St. George's, actually this 13th is just a very Langford, very wild, beyond the terrain of Plainfield. Lots of movement, ends right here. That actually was the original 18th at St. George's. And I just wanted to say one thing in terms of time sequence. When there's 3 dates that are important as far as how early is Emmet in the overall scheme of things. He did in 1897. He did Garden City, a 9-holer, which was called at the time the Island Golf Links. In 1910, he did Huntington, which we'll see in a minute. And then in 1909, he did most of Leatherstocking up in Cooperstown. And about that time, Tilly was graduating from high school. Then in 1917, he did, again, one of his greatest works, St. George's. So I get a little impatient when people ignore Emmet, because he had accomplished these, Tilly was breaking ground on a few things then, but, and Donald Ross was well established. And that wonderful guide written about by certain Santa Monica-based reporters, McKinsey, he definitely wasn't doing elaborate bunker schemes by 1910 or 1917. Okay, so we're going to go on to one more course. This is one of my favorite works. I've spoken with Ian Andrew and Tom Doak about this course. Ian feels that this is his best example of bunkering. Most of it is, some of it's eye candy, most of it's functional. To me, one of his greatest, there's the front 9 at Huntington is very strong. The back 9 has remarkable topography. So I'll quickly try to run us through from 10 to 16. Okay, 10, long par 4. 11, short par 4. 12, over the ravine. 140. 13, wild topography. 14, missing some cross bumpers here that were originally. Once we get that. And then 15, up the hill. 16, over the ravine, past the funky bunkers, blind ridge, 9,000 feet per feet. So you really got a lot of variety coming up. One of the most interesting holes is 11, right here. The fairway, the tee is elevated. It doesn't quite show here. There's more trees gone actually now. It's very, very tempting and inviting to go down the left side. There's more room. But the problem with that is if you go down the left side, there's hardly you can see it, but there's a pot bunker. So you're better off sort of working off of these bunkers to, so he sort of just deceived you. And Ian explained to me that that's something that James Gray did a lot in his career. He's sort of setting up this one little tiny piece of sand that affects strategy all the way back to the teeth. And again, relief doesn't show on this whole, or on this whole aerial too much. There's a lot of topography on this whole stretch. From tee to green at 15, you're probably going up about 50 or probably 60 feet up. So there's a lot of topography. So also, I don't know if you see there's some familiar forms like here. It's a little bit of a church pew. The routing at Huntington has been changed back and forth over or it was adjusted so that the original 18th is what's now the 6th hole, and that comes up, to a gorgeous green site with a lot of slope. So again, if you haven't had the opportunity to play Huntington,
Mark, those bunkers had to be designed for alien observation.
Yeah.
It's like a line.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I agree. Yeah, Ian said he thought this was like a caveman bunker. Caveman drawings. Those cave paintings. Yeah, and what's funny is that's like a cave painting, and when you see this in person, it's exactly like something you'd expect from peak eye. I mean, you don't get it at this aerial level, but it's, that big old mound that he did sometimes in his career. It's really fun to do. So, anyway, I have about 6 minutes more of my talking quickly. Are there any questions so far? I got about 6 minutes. Wayne.
Was Emmett an amateur architect or was he a professional?
Well, he was very professional, just he didn't ask for pay till later in his career. I don't know when that shift happened, but he did like 200 yards, 200 courses. So. And he had a big bank account. I mean, he might.
How much has McGregor been compromised?
Okay, how can I ask this? It's going to take a very patient, passionate architecture geek to understand McGregor. But the routing and even the greens are intact on about 17 holes. So it's just, it doesn't play slow, but it doesn't play fast, as far as the ground game goes. So it's like hard to say. I mean, it's very much for someone that wants to study architecture. And it might not play ideally, but I know I had encouraged Tom Doak to go there, and he was very fond of it. And he was impressed with it. So it's really, I think you would enjoy it, but it takes a lot of patience, and you have to kind of go with that purpose. I hope I answered. And some of the, people get very concerned with templates. I mean, that Sahara hole there. I mean, it's one of the best par threes I've ever seen. I'm gonna add on. I'm glad you asked that because at the very end I'm gonna read just a short citation by Robert Durance, who is a guy that we know. He's a very good player and he's traveled all over. So he loves McGregor. I'm sorry. Did anybody else have questions? Mark.
What year did they widen all the fairways here at Huntington?
Pardon me?
What year did they widen all the fairways?
Well, they've done a great job. It's been extremely long range. There's a man who I'm very grateful to named Robert Emmons who doesn't post much, But he's sort of overseen the Greens Committee for like 12 years. And so they had a great assistant superintendent, they have a great current superintendent that understand the architecture. And then about approximately 2 years ago, they decided to go with Ian Andrew as their consulting architect, sort of the shepherd, you know. So as good as it looks now, there would be a few more trees gone. And actually, Ian believes a lot in keeping fairways wide and managing trees, just like Ron Forrest and Jim do, and Ron Pritchard, you know. So it's pretty. I was stunned the other day because I hadn't been out there in 2 years. And when I looked at a real current aerial, it's amazing.
Yeah, it looks a lot better than that.
Yeah. It keeps getting better, which is so unusual. Yeah.
And it looks like 17 and 11 are actually rode together now.
Okay, let's see. So there's okay. So let's see.
Beyond the
There's
road
17. Yeah, I'm sorry,
16,
16 and 11. Yeah, they're probably, the grass is probably leading into one fairway. Yeah. Okay, just briefly, as far as Emmet's sources, he didn't talk a lot about specific. You know, I went to St. Andrews and I loved the road hole. He didn't say that, but he did mention in some newspaper articles that he had a wonderful trip and played with Sybil Wiggum in foursomes, and Prestwick impressed him more than any. So probably the three courses that impressed him the most would have been, or not probably, would be Prestwick, North Berwick, and St. Andrews a close third. That would probably be his sources.
Your relationship or connection to Emmet, how did it come about?
Well, I'm sort of, I have a little problem with obsession. So, you know, I saw everything by Ross, I saw everything by Rayner. And actually, though, to answer your question, what happened was, you know, I had seen most of Emmet's work and I liked it, but when I saw it was 10 or 12 years ago, all of these would have had much more trees. But I started exploring little, you know, 6,200 yard courses in Westchester County, 6,200 from the back, and they were always on lousy sites. So it's kind of, I realized that, oh my God, most people would turn the site down. And he had gotten just an amazing amount out of small land. So that's when I said, he really deserves more, you know. Again, like certainly Garden City, there's a lot of the bunkerings by Travis, but that routing and those subtle greens, you know. But that, to answer your question, yeah, it was mostly those visits when I started going to the unknown courses that, you know, saw how he could get a lot out of 95 acres. Okay, I got 3 more minutes. I can find your runs here. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to pass around because I'm going to get kicked off stage if I don't. Sorry, this is a little messed up, but that's the aerial I'm passing around is of the Rockville Links, which is starting to be restored by Jim Urbina. It shows some audacious bunkering. Thanks for your patience. Okay, my last slide is the site of the 39 PGA, Pomona. It's one of my favorite courses. It's now under the library at Queens College, out near the World's Fair site. The reason I showed this is you have the wild bunkering, different sizes and shapes, but it's one of the most interesting ensemble of green complexes. They probably range from like about 2,000 to about 8,000. There's a lot of wonderful par 3s that go like up to there, and then there's the tennis court, the 7. This is one of those typical finishes, 120, 340 on the hill. Henry Picard, Byron Nelson, and this particular PGA. And in closing, so here's the par 5, about 570 at that time, goes up, and there's shared bunkers. It kind of looks like a raggedy inlet here with the 12. And so I thank everybody for all their attention. I'll take a